Hi, I'm Matt Bovee, engineer on B Shift at Station 35, and today we're going to take a tour of Red 1. Red 1 is one of our crash vehicles. It's kind of our primary fire suppression vehicle for the airport. We operate near Centennial Airport and we cover them for fire rescue needs. Red 1 is a 1989 Oshkosh crash rescue truck that was refurbished in 2014 when we took possession of it. Pretty much everything is original on this. All they do is take it down, sandblast it, clean it, replace any parts that need to be replaced, and put it all back together, and then resell it as a almost new vehicle for us. So a lot of the components are new. We do have some new components that they didn't have back in 1989, like a FLIR camera, some pneumatic operating turrets and nozzles. But for the most part, it's an older truck that we've painted to look really new, and it works really well for us. It has 2,500 gallons of water, 400 gallons of foam concentrate, Class B foam concentrate, and 500 pounds of Purple K dry chem product. And when you put all those together, it produces a hydrochem product of water foam and the dry chem Purple K, which is really, really effective at putting out fires that involve either a crashed airplane, jet fuel, avgas, diesel fuel, and those fuels that are spilling and dripping, and we call those 3D fires. We have two nozzles. The top nozzle is the primary nozzle, and we can do up to 1250 GPM with that on a high flow setting. The bumper turret has the capability of doing 300 gallons per minute. This one's just going to be water and foam. The top nozzle, the roof turret, has the capability of injecting the Purple K product into the stream as well. And then we also have a hose reel. We call it a chin reel. It's underneath the front bumper of the truck itself. And we can pull this out and use it as a hand line, and it's also got the capability for water foam and Purple K as well. So we get Purple K out of the roof turret or this hand line off of the chin reel. So the multiple compartments here, we have a generator, a hydraulic generator that provides power for us. So if we need extra scene lighting, if we need other electrical needs to run a fan or extra lighting or anything like that, we have that capability as well. This truck doesn't have a whole lot of equipment on it because its primary function is just is the major fire suppression. So we have some refill hoses, we have some tools for hydrants and some other appliances, but that's really about it. A lot of the other hatches here are going to be access for our pump and engine and transmission components. So these are normally compartments you would expect to be filled with tools, which you'll find on the other RFRIGs we have. Carry a lot more tools. They have some more specialized abilities. The engine's going to be in the back. And it's an old Detroit engine. It's about 550 horsepower engine. It's not one of the new diesels that's nice and clean. This is one of those old ones that smokes quite a bit. We do have room for an extension ladder in case we need to make access into a higher fuselage door or something like that on an airplane. It's just a fuel tank. We do have a couple of extinguishers for some smaller fires. We have this fan, just an electric fan, and that's used mostly for hot brakes. So when airplanes come in and for a landing, if they're going too fast or if they have some sort of brake malfunction where their brake locks up, sometimes they'll end up with hot brakes, and those brakes tend to continue to heat after they've stopped, and they can get upwards, we've seen them upwards of 700, 800 degrees. They usually have in the tires, they usually have a fusible plug. It's like a little rubber plug that either blows out or melts away. And that happens usually about 850 degrees. And we can't put water on them. Usually they're magnesium. Usually if we put water on them, they'll crack, they'll break, especially on the military aircraft. We cannot put water on those to cool them. So we'll just put the fan next to them. We'll run the fan for 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30. And that tends to do a good job of cooling things down. And then a large cord reel in case we need to remotely get some lights or some other things like an electric sawzall down over an embankment or up onto a bluff or something like that. And this is where our 500 pounds of Purple K is stored. So in that, it is filled most of the way up with a Purple K powder product that acts as a dry chem fire extinguisher. Check out the cab. Some of the things have been updated. That's kind of nice. These little things, like they've put USB chargers in here for us, so we can run like a GoPro. We can use our Garmin if necessary. But I think the thing you notice first when you get in here is that the driver sits in the center. And if you think about how this was designed, it's really not designed for over the road like you would think in a lane of traffic. In fact, it's quite difficult to keep in a lane of traffic, and we have to drive it through, down Peoria in order to get to the airport. Normally, these things are designed to be housed at fire stations on the airfield, so you never really have to use it on the road. It's more taxiways, runways, and ramps, and so you sit in the middle because you can straddle that. You can straddle that taxiway line or that runway center line. We have some manual controls for the turret, so if we, for some reason, lose our ability either electrically with the joystick or pneumatically, which is how it's kind of operated, if for some reason any of that fails, we can go to a manual mode and continue to use this turret if we need to. So it's got a backup, a manual backup, which is always good. The other things it has is a FLIR, which is a forward-looking infrared, and it basically detects heat. If it's smoky, it gives us a little bit of an ability to kind of look through some things and maybe notice things that we wouldn't see on a very, very dark airstrip or airfield if something were to happen at night. We have backup cameras, and we have cameras underneath the front of the vehicle as well. And all that helps with just us being safe so that we don't hit runway signs or, God forbid, people. The main turret on the roof is controlled with this joystick here. Trigger's on. We can adjust our stream, so we can operate both at the same time. The main turret has a high flow and a low flow setting, and we normally leave it on low flow just because, and that's about 750 GPM. A lot of the airplanes that fly through here are fairly small, and I think if we used a full stream at 1250 GPM, we would cause more damage than what we were intending to when we got there. So we leave it on low flow. If for something a large jet were to crash and we were to have that incident happen, we would be able to change that as well. The lower turret just stays at about 300 GPM, so we could actually use that for fire suppression as well. We have the ability to just flow water, and these missile switches here are the activation for them. We can do water and foam, and then if we come over here, this is our dry chem. So if we wanted to use the Purple K product, we would have to charge the system and then decide if we wanted to use it out of the roof turret or the hose reel itself. There's 2 seating positions in here that have the SCBAs in case we do. Normally it's not our priority to jump out and wear our SCBAs and make entry or do rescues. This vehicle is mostly for the bulk of the fire suppression, but we do have that ability because the officer may need to jump out and get a better look at things, or maybe even do a 360 around the crash site in order to get a better idea of the incident. Normally the person sitting in this seat here, in the officer's seat in Red 1, is going to be our incident commander. They're going to be the ARF certified person on scene that's probably going to have the best idea. We're going to be pretty close to the first on scene as well. So he will have to jump out and get a better look. My job as the engineer is pretty much to sit in here, make sure all the bulk of the fire is out, and make sure that nothing reignites and keeps everybody safe near the fuselage of the aircraft.
Hi, my name is Vince Pratt, and I am a firefighter at Station 35 on V shift, and today we're going to go through Red 2. So Red 2 is a 2015, it's an Oshkosh Stinger is what they call it. We call it a RIV, like a rapid intervention vehicle, but it's a Ford F550 chassis, and it's just kind of been converted a lot like a brush engine would. Red 2 is a lot smaller than Red 1 and Red 3. We only have 400 gallons of water and 40 gallons of foam, but a lot like the other two, we have 500 pounds of Purple K. So the general rule of thumb is that we can go through 3 tanks of water before we have to flow or fill any foam at all. So we'll start with the front of it. So our front, we call it like our bumper turret. We can flow all 3 agents out of this front bumper turret. And the other cool thing is that our FLIR, which is right here, is mounted to it. So as we're flowing and moving, if we had to come, let's say from a downwind, downhill, we had to put down what we call ground fire, like a foam blanket to get into the crash, and it was inevitable that we had to drive through it. It works out pretty well because we're able to see where we're flowing and see what's hot, and anything like that. So the other cool thing is that we also have a winch on this rig, so if we did have to help to assist any, let's say, vehicle or plane with landing gear or anything of that nature, we could do that, let's say for like a progress capture or anything of that nature. So we'll come around this side. So here we have our pump and our foam proportioner. So our Charlie seat that's on the tower will come over here, and he's the one that's responsible for driving and pumping for us. So he has his own compartment with his own pack. So we transfer all of our bunker gear, all of our regulator and mask over when we come over, and he'll also take his thermal imaging camera. So if he had to make ingress into the plane, he would be able to. So that's our main purpose with Red 2, is that we protect the means of ingress and egress for the plane and its occupants. So whether we're going to the R1 or L1, or if you're looking at a clock, the 3 o'clock or 10 o'clock, that's what our main purpose is on this rig. So the second that we have here is all for our foam. So if we had to fill, if we had to draft, anything like that, this is where we would use it. And unlike Red 1, we have a lot of tools and supplies, a lot like Red 3, if we had to do anything like that. So we have step chocks, we have cribbing, if we had to build crib boxes, let's say if we had a landing gear failure or a plane that's kind of off kilter off the runway, this is what we would use. Another cool thing about Red 2 is that it's all air actuated. So all of our pump, anything like that is all air actuated. So we actually have 2 air tanks. So like Red 1 and Red 3, we have an air tank that's solely for our Purple K. And then we also have an air tank that's just for our actuation of our pump. So anytime that we're gonna flow anything, we also have to refill our air tanks when we're refilling our water and foam. So this is our bumper turret, a lot like Red 1's on the front. This is the only other outlet, if you will, that's able to flow all 3 agents. So the main train of thought here is if we're gonna pull a line for a plane, that we're gonna pull it to the rear and then come to the front, and that way we can use the bumper line and the turret to protect ourselves and the passengers. So on this side we have all our saws. So in the worst case scenario, when we had to cut into the fuselage of a plane, we would use these. So we have a K-saw, and we also have a Sawzall that we would use to gain access if the main ingress and egress pathway was compromised. So we also have a combi tool that we use, and it's a Hurst combi tool, but it's battery powered, so we're pretty mobile. And then we also have a actual pack that we would be tethered to, so we would never lose power if it was an extended operation. To go along with the cribbing and the step chocks, we also have 2 Rescue 42s that we would use to stabilize. And like I said, if there's a landing gear failure or if the plane is unsecure, so prior to us making entry or trying to pull passengers off, we'll try to stabilize, a lot like a car accident would. We have our forcible entry tools in here, along with our cluster hooks and our straps and anything like that we would also use. Up top we have another pre-connected hose line, and any outlet that's not the bumper turret or the rear hose reel can only flow water and foam. So all of our outlets, a lot like an engine, can flow water and foam, but only the front and back can flow all three agents. So, we'll go inside the compartment. So in the back, we're technically able to hold 4 people, but we're cross-staffed with the tower. So the 2 firefighters that are on the tower are what takes this. So once we're inside, I'll start with, all 3 of our rigs have cameras that will take GoPros, and so every aircraft,
channel 15.
every aircraft crash is viewed as a crime scene until ruled otherwise. So anytime that we go on airport grounds, we'll always record, just in case for the FAA regulations and that stuff. So this has a separate motor, and I think it's a 40-gallon diesel generator that we'll use just so we can have pump and roll capability. So this thing is a lot like a brush engine would. So right as we make entry into the access area, we'll turn our pumps on and make sure that everything's working. So we can turn it all on from in the cab or outside the cab, and then we have a joystick that we will use to flow any fluids. So then if you look up top, we have our FLIR here, like the other 2 Reds have. And so the only difference with this one is that we're able to see where we're flowing and moving rather than kind of guessing. So if we move it from left to right and then up and down, you can see that you can actually move the FLIR around and see any hot spots or unrecognized fires that we may have missed on the way. So when we're driving and flowing, we try to make everything firefighter proof, so it's nice and easy for us. So we have our pump to start, and then our RPM control and throttle control, and then over here we have our normal foam that we'll use, and then up top we have our fire system. So this is if we're going to flow Purple K at all. So we'll use this one to flow Purple K, and we'll use this one just to flow our AFFF. That we don't have an MDT at all, and then we also don't have a officer on our rig. So everything that is communicated will be done by Red 1, and then we'll follow them. But anything other than that is done by the Delta C firefighter or the senior firefighter if we do need to talk. So this is a lot like an engine or a truck. So the driver of the rig does not have an SCBA at all. That's inside the cab. So only the officer will have a SCBA, and they're the ones that's responsible for getting out and then pulling the hose line and everything like that. As soon as we're in a position that we're going to stay for a little while, and the engineer, if you will, of this rig will hop out, and he has his own pack on the outside of the cab that he'll put on. And he's kind of, once again, like that rapid intervention team. So he's going to stay with the engine, and he's going to pump it all, and then the officer will be the one that takes the hose line and actually goes into the fuselage.